Um, Let me just ask right quick, get tired of raising your hands. How many people here, I know what would happen if I stated this the other way. How many people here have no knowledge or the tent girl term does not raise memories? Anybody here for that? There are a few. Yes, okay. If I knew everybody else would be throwing their hand up, I asked how many knew it. Um, the I think this is a really interesting story. I came to Georgetown in the fall of 1972. The story really begins in 1987. I'm sorry, 1980. Yeah, 1987. Um, but I learned about the tent girl very quickly because at that particular time, the local papers always ran her story right about Halloween time. And I read the story and I found it very interesting. And I started looking into it, followed it for a good little while. That publishing every Halloween the story of the tent girl has kind of drifted by the wayside in the last 30 years, which I will say something about at the end. But it's a very interesting story. It's probably the longest standing mystery in the history of the area. And so let's just get right into it. Uh, come on. The story begins. Let me see the hands of you who do not know what this is. Okay? Have no idea what this is. Okay. I don't have to explain a whole lot. This is an insulator from the telephone lines. Years ago, when the telephone companies replaced their lines or worked on their lines, the crossbars on the poles had these insulators on them, and they're made out of glass. I have one at home. I had a reminder in my phone, pick up the insulator, before I came here, but I didn't. Um, it's right heavy, probably weighs close to a pound, stands about this high, and it's beautiful glass. Perfect insulator. It does not carry electricity. It's a smooth, hard surface. It doesn't degrade, so it doesn't affect the wires wrapped around it and whatnot. And it's very frequently, the time was when the phone company ever did work on the lines, they frequently replaced the insulators. And when they did that, out in the country, threw them over their shoulder. And that was an item that collectors sought for. And when they would get them, they'd either collect them themselves or sell them to collectors. There's not a flea market you could go to that did not have several tables with various sundry colors and some different shapes of these insulators. So the story really begins here because the individual who started this story was actually looking for insulators along US 25 in the vicinity of the Sadieville turnoff and the I-75 exit. It was heavily overgrown. He I had information he worked for the telephone company. No, what did he work for? Road department. Okay. Anyway, somebody who would have known that was taking place, and the recent times they had done some work there, and he was searching for insulators. He had already found several. His name was Wilbur Jenkins. He made the initial discovery. But I'm sorry, Wilbur Riddle. I've got that wrong. I'll tell you why I have that wrong in a minute. There was a movie made about it, and he didn't give him his real name. He did not want his name in the movie. Wilbur Riddle. Yeah, I apologize for that. Thank you. But at any rate, what he did as he's walking along a drop-off area that's a lot of grass there, he found a couple of insulators, but he came up and tripped along a canvas roll that was 5 to 6 feet long, maybe about 3 feet wide, and tied with twine at both ends, lying there in the grass. And when he nudged it with his foot, it actually rolled down a slope, and he went down to see what was in it. Looks maybe somebody lost tools or something off their truck, and he was going to look. Had a penknife, and he cut the tarpaulin that he had, and he was surprised at the odor that came out. One of the other people said that came to the scene quickly said, "There's only one thing that smells like that, and that's human flesh." And so he was wondering what it was. What action did he take? The first thing he did, I got to find a phone. Now, in 1968, you didn't carry them in your pocket. He had to go to a filling station, which was 2 or 3 miles away. He called the sheriff, who was Bobby Vance, and he asked him to come to the scene. Bobby Vance came to the scene along with Deputy Jimmy Vance, a deputy coroner, Kenneth Grant. The three of them came to the scene, and immediately they knew what they were looking at. They knew that there was a body wrapped up in that canvas. Now, I've got another name on here who was not at that scene early, County Attorney Virgil Pryor. The reason I put that on here is because Virgil Pryor and Bobby Vance both spent their lifetimes trying to track that name down, chasing leads, looking for new leads. They worked very hard at it, and both of them said through their lives that one of the most disappointing things they ever had was not giving her a name. Okay, here they are at the scene. They first look at the victim was very badly decomposed. It was a young woman who was completely naked. The search of the area provided no physical evidence whatsoever. You might look at this and see, well, it looks like she's wearing clothes. No, that was a small white rag that was actually wrapped around her head when she was put in the thing. There's a story about that. But no physical evidence anywhere around could they find that might give them a lead. That started a 30-year mystery. The coroner, who was Kenneth Grant, did the first body observations. He found that she was a Caucasian female, 5'1" in height, age 16 to 19 years, and we'll come back to that one because that showed up later as an important estimate. She had short reddish brown hair, no identifying marks of any kind, no tattoos. Of course, that was in the 1960s when everybody didn't have a tattoo, but no broken bone, nothing like that. She had not been pregnant, and his estimate was she likely been dead for 2 or 3 weeks. Again, that's a little bit of a change we're going to have to make. Just put this slide here in case there's anybody that is really squeamish, but it's not. This is the actual autopsy photo of the lady. It has been electronically enhanced and was used, as we'll talk about in a minute, in a further later article. Okay, so she gets a name. A reporter from the Kentucky Post and Times newspaper up north near Cincinnati, and there were at this time there were all the newspapers in the area had stories about this girl, and he called her the tent girl in his story because she was wrapped in canvas like tent workers actually used to set up for tents, and the name stuck. Virgil Pryor, the county attorney I mentioned earlier, who requested a second autopsy from Dr. Frank Cleveland, who was a very well-known pathologist. He also found Harold Messer, who was a patrolman with, I think, the Cincinnati Police or Northern Kentucky Police, but he was an artist, and he did a lot of sketches for the police department then, and he enlisted his help to do an enhanced photograph. This began nationwide publicity because almost exactly a year after she was found, an article came out in a May 1969 issue of the Master Detective magazine. You've all seen True Detective and Master Detective and whatnot at Kroger's for a long time. but it's a sensational magazine. The article in there was written, it's a little sensational, but during that first year, an incredible amount of research into who this girl could be was done. Virgil Pryor, I said, he led the charge, but the story was circulated first statewide and then circulated nationally through law enforcement outlets and whatnot, and she was becoming fairly well known, and always was carried that the tent girl with her. This is the Master Detective magazine from 1969, May of 1969. I was always interested in this story. And my wife and I, for 30 years, on Friday and Saturday, our today time was yard sales. We went to many, many yard sales. Now, I think now, what I'm doing now is we're going to yard sales. Before I go, I fill up my pockets with things I picked up at yard sales, and I'll go buy a table and I'll, like that, so that whenever somebody comes along, how much is that? I don't know. I've never seen it. So, and a way to get rid of some of that stuff. But at any rate, I found this magazine about 10 to 12 years ago at a yard sale. Now, it is dog-eared. It's been used. If you look in there at that article, who is the tent girl and who killed her, on the front page. If you look at that article, there's all sorts of little notes that have been made. Somebody's gone through that article several times. I don't know who it was, but I have the article. I have the Master Detective magazine right here, and I'm going to give it to the library as soon as this is over. But this story ran nationwide in a national magazine, available in every supermarket and the leads started pouring in again. And for a long time, they have leads. My good friend Bobby McDowell, we've talked about this case many times. Bobby was very close with the law enforcement bodies and with the court system, spent his life doing that. So he kept up with it. He's told me there's a file somewhere about that thick that Bobby Vance had. Not, I mean, he kept that file. But every time a lead would come in, it would have to be investigated. You got to get on the phone, you got to talk to people, you got to get information. During that first year, there were 3 different girls that were identified by people seeing information. This is her. There's no question. And when you compared that, when I say 3, lots of people thought it looked like their lost daughter or their lost sister. There was a tremendous amount of information coming in. Every lead was thoroughly investigated. The 3 girls that were found to be matching every way, and the parents looked at the picture, yeah, that could be here, that could be here, whatnot. They were found alive after a long search. And that kind of takes them out of the possibility pool. But I think, Bobby, you told me that your information was that during the overall searches they made, they found something like 15 different missing women. Yeah.
Vance told me the best hit they had was a girl named Ditmar.
Mm-hmm.
But she was also found alive.
Yeah, she was found alive. They looked for her for 2 or 3 things and publicity around, and then they got I think this is the case where they got an anonymous phone call. Somebody picks it up. That girl you're looking for ain't the tent girl. She's living in Cynthiana or something like that, and they found her. And she was estranged from her family, but because she was found and put back, she ended up getting married to the guy she was with, and the family was very happy about that. This was the artist's sketch of the tent girl. And you can imagine lots of young women would look like that. But that was the artist's sketch. Okay, when I say a heartwarming phenomenon, this was for me. She was a little waif. Nobody knew who she was. She was found naked. She was found in Georgetown area. The town adopted her. They really did. The city gave her a place in the cemetery. Uh, the generous benefactor, laid for a beautiful headstone. It's there today, and it really is a very lovely thing. I was told early on by people who kept up with it that there was never a day you could go by and there would not be fresh flowers on the grave. I tested that out. I went by every 5 years for at least 20 years, and that was true. 20 years down the road. And it was neat. And a lot of the citizens were like me. They just followed the story and any information they could get. Fresh Flowers Anonymously. Her story, as I say, was printed in the newspaper right about Halloween time by both the Georgetown News and the Georgetown Graphic before they became the Georgetown News Graphic. And that seems to have fallen away. There has been very little, aside from the time in late 1990s when she was actually identified. But for 10 years, nothing, no leads, no nothing from this point on. There is the headstone. Sorry, can't see it, but I think they'll have these pictures on the website if you'd like to go see them. But the inscription, the tent girl found May 17th, 1968, Highway 25 North, died about April 26th to May 3rd, age of 16 to 19 years, height 5'1", weight 110 to 115, reddish brown hair, unidentified. And that's what's on her headstone. Interestingly enough, there is another, and I saw this before I ever read about it. One time on my trip to thing, fairly close to that, there's a very small headstone, and the only inscription there is somebody's son. And that was a young man who died, was unidentified. He was buried about 30 years before her. And that headstone is still there as well in the same area. Okay, now what happened? Well, a young man married into the family. His name was Todd Matthews. And one time around Christmas time, they were back around and they said, well, let's tell some ghost stories. And people are telling ghost stories. Well, this is Wilbur's son-in-law, I think. And Wilbur said, let me tell you a real one. And he passed the story along. And let me tell you a real one. And Todd Matthews was taken with the story. He got very interested in it. He started looking up all the references in newspapers and whatnot that he could find to read more and more about it. Well, the other thing that came along at that time was the internet. And Todd got a computer and became reasonably proficient with it. And he began searching websites put up by people who had missing relatives. And folks, get on there and try it out. There are thousands of websites on the internet for people who are missing family members, various kinds, looking for them. That's why I said, man, there's a lot of articles. That's the first thing he found. He actually set up his own computer, and he set up his own tent girl site. It's still there. Very small site, and all it does is a little bit of information, call me, and then down at the bottom of it, she's been found. And all of a sudden, one time, about 1998, he got a hit. A woman from Arkansas named Rosemary Westbrook, who was looking for her older sister, wrote on her site this site. You can read that. My sister Barbara has been missing from our family since the latter part of 1967. She has brown hair, brown eyes, about 5 feet 2 inches, was last seen in the Lexington area. If you have information, please contact me. His immediate response was, I got a lump in my throat. So do I. I got a lump in my throat. They were back and forth communications talking about the various information from both sides. It jived very well. They eventually said, yeah, we think this is it. They made an official request for an exhumation of the body, where they did do that. Dr. Emily Craig, who I know, several others of you know, she actually, I think, lived in Scott County, is the state medical examiner, and very well known. She was one of the few that went to Waco, Texas, after the big blowout in Waco, Texas, to identify those bodies. She's a very well known person. She did it. A match. She has a name, Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor. There's a family supplied picture. There's lots of pictures of her on the internet. If you go on the internet and just type in tent girl, there's tons of things, and I've read many of them. Basically, I wrote this myself, but it's very similar because most of those come from other postings too, and it's there. At that point, they agreed to leave the body in Georgetown because of the heritage there. Notice what they did. They lifted the thing up. They put in this, Barbara Ann Hackman. They left Taylor off of it for reasons we'll talk about. The dates, and loving mother, grandmother, and sister. By the time she was found, her 8-year-old daughter had children. So she would have been their grandmother. Now, I ask this question. Why was it so difficult to find out who she was? Why was this so difficult? And what was the key factor in her eventual identification? Well, number one, the age was off. She was 24 years old. The estimate was 16 and 19 years old. But she was killed in August of 1967, and she was found in May of 1968. She had gone through the winter. And that degradation there, and just at that point, not a real good database to figure out how long she'd been there, but probably in the winter she did not, degrade as rapidly. Now, let's talk about her husband Earl and their time spent in Lexington. Earl Taylor had been a carnival worker. Access to the tarp. He had been a carnival worker. They moved to Lexington in the first week of August, I think, of 1967. She was found in 68, 67. About a week before school was to start. They moved in. She was enrolled in the Lexington school system. And about a week after that, 2 weeks residence in Lexington, they were estranged from her family. The family was not happy with the marriage. They had been estranged for several years, but they were in Lexington for 2 weeks now. The girl had been in. She remembered. She was 8 years old at the time. She remembered when this girl had been identified, and they went to her family and they tracked all the people down. She says, "Well, I remember my parents having a big argument that night. When I woke up the next morning, my dad said that she had run off. And as a result, we're leaving town." And he said when he told us, the car was already packed. They left the Lexington area. There was no one in the Lexington area to find her missing. They had not really made any friends. She left the school after a week, and the school didn't follow up. no, had no way of following up. No one in this area knew that family had been here. No one knew where they went. And so their family never accepted, and Earl actually called their family, her family, and told them, saying, she run off with another man, I don't know where she is. And then never contacted them again. And so they knew that was not true. They knew that she would not have left her children. She had 2 children, had a younger infant at that point. And the diaper that was found around her head, the only physical evidence, they actually sent that to the FBI. They thought it was a different kind of toweling, and at the same time, one of the service stations up and down there reported that somebody had cut off their towel in the men's room. Now that was back when the towels would be on their thing, and you pull it down with your hair and then pull it down. That somebody had cut their towel off, so they sent a piece of that towel and this, and the FBI went through it and they said this is a diaper. That's how they knew that was, and that's still the only physical evidence they had ever from the crime scene. Earl, I made a mistake here myself in reading. I ran across something that said Earl Taylor died in prison in the 80s. And he died because he killed his second wife. He served 25 years for doing that. And during that 25 years, they discovered that he had killed his first wife too, got out, went back to prison. And I said, well, that's what happened to him. Well, no, it's not. Okay, that was a different Earl Taylor. That was Robert Earl Taylor. Her husband was Earl Leslie Taylor. So different people. And I was wrong for a long time. I thought he'd gotten his just divorce, but he was dead. As a result of being dead, nobody had much doubt about what happened and who had killed her. But he could never be prosecuted because he was dead. Officially, this is still an open case in police files because there wasn't any way to close it. You found somebody who killed her, but they couldn't prosecute. So now I will just say my only thoughts on this. Number one, I feel bad that she has fallen by the wayside in terms of the town's knowledge of her. You know, a lot of people will remember a lot about her. A lot of you folks remember that, okay? The new folks don't know anything about the tent girl. The only time I've seen an article in the paper about the tent girl anymore was when she was identified. And that was a great thing. There was no question. It was a great thing. But this was a young woman that the town took to their heart. They took care of her as best they could and remembered her for a long time. But a lot of that remembered. And that's one reason I was interested, talked to Glenn, I was interested in doing this program because I just like to share a couple of highlights. And that's it. Thank you. I guess it's over. Do I have any questions? I'll be happy to try and field questions. Probably the way that I found out about her, or just a fairly regular little blurb about this. This was an important person in Georgetown's history. But, you know, I don't know that. You know, that's not my call, but I would guess that. Bill, did you have a question?
What about the children? What happened to the children?
The children were reunited with the family. They were reunited with the family, and did I lose my thing? And as far as I know, I mean, you saw on the gravestone that they put in the change that she was identified as a grandmother. And I think she's reunited with the family. I mean, she was never.
Her maternal grandparents.
What's that?
The maternal grandparents, I presume.
I don't know. Yes, maternal. Yeah, yeah. The girl's family. Yeah, they had searched for her. They never gave up. And like I say, in 1998, he found that quote that she was searching for her. They were searching for her.
In that, with all of the decomposition of the body, Bobby Vance always felt like she was strangled to death.
Well, the second autopsy that they did a second autopsy, and I skipped over that, and I didn't mean to do that. He found what he thought was a bruise on the side of her head, and in the way she was wrapped, she had hands reaching out, like she might have been trying to cut her way, help her way out. And the final cause of death was ruled suffocation. So, but he did find something that was a bruise on the side of the head. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. He died of cancer in the 80s. He was never prosecuted. No, I mean they never even knew who he was. They didn't know who she was until 1998. So were both of those children his, the 8-year-old and yes, I mean they both grew up and are back in the family. So he didn't raise with her family. He didn't raise the children? No, he took the children with him when they left. So he raised them? Yes, he raised them. Yeah. Yes. So they had been married for some time. Yes. Yes. I think that's probably why they were estranged. I've never heard information on that, but she would have been married at least 16 or maybe a year younger. He had the 8-year-old prior, but they had an 8-month-old baby girl together. Yes. Oh, okay. So that was a stepdaughter? For her, yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they did have a baby. That's right. It was his daughter, wasn't it? It was his daughter, her stepdaughter. But the stepdaughter is the one who remembered the argument. Yeah. Found in May of '68. The supposition is that she was killed or died in August of '67. Found wrapped up in a tent. What did he do with the body for that many months? I don't know. No, well, I think he dumped her as he was leaving. I think through the winter she just didn't decompose as fast. That's my thought. Yeah, he just dumped her out as they were driving north. That's what the common thought was. Anybody else? Yeah. Wilbur Riddle's family. Wilbur Riddle, the guy who found the original thing. And he was the one who said, when they're telling ghost stories, he said, well, let me tell you a real one that I was involved with. So. What now? 1998, I believe. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Oh. The evidence that they had and the story that the girl told, it would have been probably when her parents were having the argument at their house in Lexington. She said she heard a very loud argument that night. And when she woke up, she was gone. And they moved immediately. So I think that's probably what it was. One more. I'm sorry. I think he's being. It's on being filmed, and it'll be on YouTube. Yeah. So yes. That's what the second person who did the second autopsy thought. Of course, after 5 months out in the ground, it's really hard to tell, but they thought she probably suffocated. But she had been unconscious when they was wrapped in the thing. He may have thought she was dead. I don't know. So, never. That's something you'll never know. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your temper.